Hi everybody, it's the Commissioner, Sean Cunningham from Wrestling Audio Revolution. I just wanted to post a video to quickly talk about my thoughts about Bobby the Brain Heenan. As some of you may know, on Sunday, September 17th, Bobby passed away after a very, very long battle with mouth and throat cancer. And this is really saddening to me. I grew up watching WWF, as a lot of you know, and I grew up watching and listening to a ton of Bobby the Brain Heenan as a manager and more notably as a commentator through the 80s and 90s. I did get a chance to see him in person manage one time. I was lucky enough to be at WrestleMania 6, where he managed, most notably, Andre the Giant and Haku against Demolition in a tag title match where Andre the Giant and Haku lost the titles to Demolition. And this is notable because after the match, Bobby spent a great deal of time putting his finger in the chest of Andre, which led Andre to basically take his giant-sized fist, which encompassed most of Bobby's head, and just whack him 3 or 4 times and smack him around, and Bobby flew around like he always did. And Andre left the conquering, newly re-baby-faced Andre the Giant at that time. But that was just amazing to see Bobby do what he did, kind of flop around and bump for some of the guys, especially Andre, who he reportedly loved so much and enjoyed working with. But like I said, I grew up more with Bobby as the sharp-tongued, quick-witted commentator who knew how to insult everyone and anyone at any time, and that's what made it awesome to watch him and to listen to him. And I encourage everybody who's a wrestling fan, whether you grew up with it or not, to go on WWE Network or find other sources of Bobby Heenan material and watch it. Because if you're interested in being a manager or something like that in the wrestling business, go watch Bobby the Brain Heenan. If you're interested in being a heel of any sort, go and watch Bobby the Brain Heenan. And if you're interested in being an entertaining commentator, announcer, go and watch Bobby the Brain Heenan, because you will learn everything that you can from watching him and listening to him, and it will make you better. And I hope that people at WB see this, but we'll see. Corey Graves, you're doing a wonderful job, and clearly you learned from Bobby Heenan. When I think about Bobby, he was just so far ahead of everything. WB even felt enough to give him his own show, a weird, corny, cheesy talk show segment at the end of prime time in the summer of '89 called The Bobby Heenan Show, and it literally looked like a bad knockoff of Johnny Carson's Tonight Show. And it was funny as hell because he'd bring cheesy guests on and insult them. He'd have a co-host who he'd insult. He'd have 3 what we would now call plus-size models, and he'd kind of bring them out and do jokes. It was basically a half-an-hour forum for Bobby to do all his jokes and all his bits without the context of a wrestling match or the limitations of, somebody else has to call a wrestling move. No, it was just Bobby doing his stuff for 25-30 minutes every single time. And unfortunately there were only 4 of these, but they were really, really good. And again, those are something that I think are on the network, tied into the primetime wrestling shows. And if they're not on the network soon, they will be. And if you have other ways to see them like I did, go find them. They're worth it too. Bobby's career started in the Midwest, in Minnesota, largely with the AWA and Vern Gagne. Bobby, in the late 70s and early 80s, was not only an amazing manager, but he was a great wrestler. And the nickname The Brain started there in the AWA. He went from being called Beautiful Bobby Heenan to Bobby the Brain Heenan, as he was managing Nick Bockwinkel and Ray Stevens. The other nickname that Bobby is more known for The Weasel also started in the AWA. In the 80s, largely with Greg Gagne, he had what would be called a Weasel suit match, which was to win the match, you had to put your opponent in the Weasel suit. And when I say Weasel suit, I mean white suit with paws and claws and a tail. And Greg Gagne and Bobby Heenan had a few of these. I've seen one or two. And Bobby would flop around like a fish after he got put to sleep and stuffed in the Weasel suit. And then as he woke up, he'd like throw a childish temper tantrum. That's the best way I can describe it. But it would just be so fun to watch. WWF did try to recreate these in the late 80s when they had Bobby go on a house show run against a series of big faces after getting the pinfall in a 6-man tag match at WrestleMania 4 against the British Bulldogs and Koko B. Ware, where he teamed up with the Islanders. This was the culmination of the Islanders and Bobby Heenan stealing Matilda away from the British Bulldogs, and the culmination was the 6-man tag match, which Bobby, like I said, got the pinfall. This led to him going on a run of quote-unquote undefeated matches on the house show loop with guys like Tito Santana and Koko B. Ware. But as the summer wore on, they put him in the ring with the Ultimate Warrior in a Weasel suit match around the loop, and he lost, from what I understand, every time. And every time he flopped around like a fish. The most notable one I've ever seen on video, I think, is from Milwaukee in August of '88, County Stadium. That's the only one I know that's on videotape. There might be more, but again, it's something that everybody needs to go and see. Bobby's also the only person who got to be on the first episode of Monday Night Raw and the first episode of Monday Nitro. In 1993, Bobby was coming to the end of his WWE run, and on the first episode of Raw, his whole thing was he had been replaced by a New York radio disc jockey and was trying to get into the Manhattan Center for the thing. This, again, one of Bobby's more comedic moments, done almost perfectly. The disguises trying to get in and being foiled every time by Sean Mooney, who was out front of the building. Just so good and so perfect. Something Bobby shared with us more and more. His comedic timing. And then he went to WCW in 1994 and was used strictly as an announcer, short of one appearance at the Great American Bash 1996, where he was the quote-unquote coach for Arn Anderson and Ric Flair against Steve McMichael and Kevin Green. And I remember the promo on Nitro where the Four Horsemen named him the coach because they pulled out a John Madden 1986 the All Madden team plaques that he put on TV, and Bobby Heenan's name legitimately was on the All Madden plaque for the year 1986. So just shows you how much influence he had. And it was just amazing to see him, even in a place like WCW that I really feel didn't utilize him as well as they could, make something out of nothing, or out of a not so good situation. Bobby's run in WCW was memorable largely for, to me, what they didn't use him for. They didn't really allow him to do the comedic stuff. He was there to be an analyst and kind of not cut as many jokes, although he tried. And he was there for until about 2000. But you could tell as the company went in a downturn, he lost interest too, like anybody would. And luckily, Bobby did make a comeback to the WWF in 2001, coming back at first for the WrestleMania 17 Gimmick Battle Royal as a commentator with Gene Okerlund, and then made a subsequent comeback in 2004 doing a comedic bit with Gene, claiming that they had made out in a closet with Mae Young and the Fabulous Moolah. That was also the year that he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. And his speech was amazing, just because he talked about his entire life and legacy. But when he broke down, it was an amazing moment when he really just wanted his buddy Gino Gorilla Monsoon to be there with him, and talked about how much he had missed his longtime friend, who unfortunately passed away in 1999. Bobby Heenan left an amazing legacy for, like I said, anybody who's a wrestling fan, everybody who knows and anything about wrestling, and anybody who wants to learn how to get people's attention, because Bobby did that better than anyone, whether it be in or out of the ring. From myself and all of us here at Wrestling Audio Revolution, we send our thoughts, prayers, and condolences to the Heenan family, his friends, and his fans. Thank you for everything.